All right, welcome in. It is Wednesday. It's time for Full Court Press, the best hour of the day, right here on the Wager Talk YouTube channel and live. I think we're back live on Twitter now, at least mine and at least the Wager Talk one. So thank you for bearing with us yesterday as we got through those technical difficulties, but we are back. We are on time, and let's just get right into it. I'm going to go to Brian Power because we got a lot to talk about today. This is a more extensive slate than I initially thought. Was at my desk at 6 a.m. this morning and felt like I should have probably been there at 5. So big double header in the top 25 tonight. I'm going to go to you. Arizona, UConn. I believe this is a Gamble Pavilion in Storrs, Connecticut. How are you seeing this one?
Yeah, first true road game for Arizona. Not only, by the way, we should note this. A good friend of the show, Clint, passed this info along to me or remind me about this. I was aware of it, but it's not something I was thinking of. They don't observe daylight savings time out in Arizona, guys. So this is actually only a 2 time zone trip for the Wildcats. They're in the mountain time zone during the winter. So file that away in your memory bank. Regardless of time zone, though, guys, Arizona, interesting to me. They're taking a very low volume of three-point attempts this year. Just 27.2% of their total field goal attempts come from behind the arc. That's bottom 10 in the country. So, three-point variance is obviously a very real thing in college basketball. We talk about it all the time. They're a team where I guess there's just, because they're not attempting a lot, there's probably going to be less variance for the Wildcats. Now, the other concern on the Arizona side, freshman Cole Pete, heavily hyped. He's seen his scoring decrease every game. He had 30 in the opener against Florida, if you remember, down to only 7 against UCLA the other night. Nevertheless, Wildcats 4-0. They've got 2 wins against ranked opponents, Florida and UCLA. Not to be outdone, however, as you guys are well aware, UConn just held off an excellent BYU team for a 2-point win up in Boston. Huskies shot 57%, basically 56.6 to be exact, overall from the floor. They had an 11-point lead at halftime. I will say, though, Trigg, Dan Hurley may be a bit of a cause for concern in that his team shot so well and only won by 2. You shoot 56% from the floor, you'd expect to win by more than 2. Also, defensively, UConn allowing the highest assist percentage in the entire country right now. I'm pretty close to market here in terms of the point spread. Made the game -5, which was right in line with where the line opened. Early money on the favorite. I think if you forced me to, and I hope you don't, but if you forced me to, I would look UConn first half. My concern with Arizona, they're young. Like I said at the outset, first true road game. I think it could be a slow start for them in this kind of environment. We saw UConn obviously get out to the big first half lead against BYU. Alex Caravan shooting the ball extremely well so far, 62% from the field. I think UConn probably gets up by a few possessions going into the break.
Let's get you in here, Rob.
Sure. You got me?
Yep.
Yeah, you can hear? Okay. I wasn't sure if you could hear me. Real quick, I'm going to go back to what Brian was talking about, that game previous against BYU. Listen, that's a coaching moment for Danny Hurley. UConn had that game wire to wire. And for whatever reason, and teams do this, got out of their comfort zone, tried to let off the gas, walk it up, slow it down, milk the clock. And A.J. DeBonsta went crazy at the end of that game. And BYU, which is a really, really good team, if they'd have had 35 more seconds, they might have got there because UConn was not handling it well once they got close. But I would say for 33 minutes of that game, it was not a contest. And again, BYU is a really good basketball team. Puts a lot of faith in what Connecticut has for a starting 5 and a full rotation here. And believe me, Dan Hurley's not a guy who's going to miss a coaching point. So I wouldn't expect, if UConn's ahead here, any let up whatsoever. Concern, Brian touched on it a little bit, first true road, but you're bringing a 4-pack of freshmen on the road. Koa Pete, you mentioned his numbers, Brian. He's still a freshman. These ups and downs are going to happen with these guys. In their rotation of 8, you got 4 guys that are inside the top 8 in minutes played for Arizona that are freshmen right now. The backcourt is steady. It's veteran. We know that Delorso and Bradley are solid players, but I do wonder about, Gamble is a very, very cramped arena. It's a campus arena. Yep. And they pack them in there. Adam, you've probably been there. And I can just speak for myself. When they play in the Hartford Civic Center, there's a lot more people who eat their dinner at 4:30 at night in the crowd. And when you play at Gamble, it is way more rowdier, coast to coast trip, 2 time zones or 3. I just wonder how these freshmen are going to handle the environment if UConn goes on a 10-0 run or something in this game. Arizona, if you want to just go to the schedule, they're well prepped. You played Florida on a neutral, or in Las Vegas. I don't think it was so neutral because Arizona has the fan base there. And then you play UCLA in Inglewood, 2 totally different styles. Florida brings a huge front court to the game, one of the nation's best. UCLA brings a lot of perimeter shooting and solid defense. So, stylistically, they're prepped. I just think the venue is a difficult ask for these 4 freshmen. I think UConn is veteran as they are. Terrace Reed has become a terror under the hoop. Alex Caravan, talk about taking advantage of a COVID year. I think he's 6th or 7th year at UConn. They have a bunch of ball handlers. And one last thing to say is that, and Danny Hurley recognized this. I saw it watching the game the other night. Silas Demery was the guy in the clutch that they were going to for these key buckets. So you just add another guy to the list with solo ball, etc. I think UConn's probably the right side. I think the money is correct. I think UConn probably wins this game and covers.
Yeah, I'll talk about Gamble for a second. My cousin went to UConn, lived in the parking lot that was like right on the other side of Gamble, and like it's such a better atmosphere with the kids there. Like, it's not to say that students won't go to XL Center for the games, but it is first of all, XL Center is a pain in the ass to get to from UConn. That is mostly for alumni. So many UConn alumni like stay in the Hartford area. So when you're down at downtown XL, it's going to be like vast majority is going to be like alumni there. And then you still have your student section, but Gamble is just a more rowdy atmosphere. You're right, Rob. Tight quarters. It's going to be packed. I always bump UConn up a point or 2 for home court at Gamble more than when they play at XL Center. So I think that'll be a fantastic atmosphere tonight. As far as, like, you mentioned Dan Hurley, and I talked about this last year too, and I feel like it's worth bringing up again because even though UConn still made it to the Sweet 16 or the round of 32 last year, played Florida great. They really had them on the ropes and could have won that game. I think people look at UConn last year as they underachieved, which is kind of crazy when you consider what UConn has done the past couple of years. Dan Hurley's the best coach in college basketball. Dan Hurley has the best staff in college basketball. All of those, you know how you see like Florida's assistant, the one assistant goes to Columbia. I think another assistant took a different job. Like Hurley's assistants really don't leave. Like all of those assistants could have jobs where pretty much wherever they wanted in like mid to small major. And he's been able to, like, for the most part, retain his coaching staff. So not only do you have Hurley, you have this elite staff. And to me, that's worth points on the number. And now you're talking about a UConn team that's, I don't want to say they're like undervalued. That's probably not the right way to say it, but like it's not like last year where they came in and they were like number 1 and like there was no value in UConn at all, or like the year before where they were coming off of another national championship. So it's like the number's right, but I would not want to bet against UConn in this spot. I'd have to find a way to play UConn. I also think that the way they run offense is going to confuse Arizona. A lot of screens. Arizona's got a lot of I don't know if they're equipped defensively necessarily to stop that. And then on the road where it can snowball, the crowd's into it. Suddenly it's that 8-9 point home, run where you get at home and suddenly you're down 10. That's why I don't want Arizona in this spot. Brian, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, what do you think about the first half angle then? Because when I was breaking this down, with the number, it's now north of 2 possessions for the full game. Obviously, 3.5 is north of 1. But I just, you look at how UConn started last game. I think we're all, the consensus here among the panel is that Arizona walking into Gamble is going to maybe it's going to take them a little bit to find their legs. It's a tough environment to play in. That lends itself to a slow start from the visiting team.
Ryan, do you remember when, and Rob, I'm sure remembers this as well. Remember like 20 years ago when Duke was just so good. And there was always that, like when you played at Cameron Indoor, the last like couple minutes of the half, it always seemed like they just
just gets away from the
right at
visiting
the
team,
end of the first half. They had that knockout punch. Every time the handful of times I've been to Gamble the last few years, UConn's hit that knockout punch right at the end of the first half where it was like, I swear I think I've been like to 3 games at Gamble over the past like 5 years or so. And it was just like that last 4 minutes is real tough for opposing teams. And I'm pretty sure I went to Big East games who probably are used to it a little bit. When was the last time Arizona came to Gamble Pavilion, if ever, right? Like when was the last time they played at Gamble? When was the last time they played UConn on the road? So like, yeah, I think you might be onto something with the first half. Rob, I'm going to come to you for part 2, little double feature tonight, because we have another massive game in college basketball that deserves the, the feature attention. We're going to head out, not to Champaign. I believe this is at the United Center or whatever, if they still call it that, in Chicago, where the Bulls play. So kind of a home game for Illinois. Do you still give them the home court bump when they play in Chicago, Rob?
I think you should, but maybe not as much as I'm trying to think of a good example of a team who might get into a bigger arena from their campus, Adam. But since I can't right off the top of my head, I mean, we did just talk about Stores to Hartford, where the bump is less, certainly. It'd probably be a little less here. Alabama, in all likelihood, they might travel a little bit here. I didn't get exact numbers on Alabama ticket sales to get to the United Arena, or United Center. But we could see some crimson in the crowd. Game, fundamentally, guys, for Illinois, let's just right off the bat, they still have the injuries, right? They've played with them for most of the season. Tomas Ivasic still out. Big Z, his brother, still in. And, of course, they played without their point guard Petrovic all season long. For Illinois, let me start with this, because I remember saying to Brian last time we had Alabama, perhaps you and Nate Oates should have a conversation. And we discussed how Nate Oates, in his quotes, thought that his team was grossly underrated. And then they went out and got beat by Purdue 87-80. Here's today's Nate Oates, guys, because I want to have quote session here from Nate Oates. This might become a thing on this show, quote session from Nate Oates. After the Purdue game, he said, "That's embarrassing. In life, in sports, the team that plays harder, the people that work harder in whatever field you're in should win, and they won. They deserve to win. We're going to have to fix some stuff." He went on. "We've got issues on the glass. We knew it in our exhibition games. We knew it in our intra-squad scrimmages. We knew it up at St. John's, but we did a pretty good job. We out-rebounded them by like 1. Until we figure out how to make tougher plays, rebound the basketball at a much higher level, we're going to have a hard time beating the best teams in the country." Nate Oates, far cry from we're grossly underrated. He sees a distinct problem with his team, but I don't know that they're going to have as big of an issue in this game on the boards as they had against Purdue, because remember that Kaufman-Wren came back in that game. Oscar Clough, those two guys together, they just seem like vacuum cleaners on the boards. I don't know that Illinois has that on the boards against Alabama. So I'm going to let that go a little bit. What I will say is, in Alabama's 2 games against really good teams, Nate Oates has proven right in his quotes. I mean, they win by 7 at St. John's. Offensive rebounding, they're +6. Let's just go to offensive glass where you get second chances, right? They're +6 against St. John's. They're -12 against Purdue, and they lose by 7. So he's got a point. Illinois was out-rebounded by Texas Tech in that game. Texas Tech is not the largest team in the world. I mean, they're smallish as far as height is considered. So Alabama stands a chance here. And I'll say this, Illinois beat Texas Tech, but how about a 23-4 free throw advantage? +19. Texas Tech only shoots 4 free throws in that game. Are you kidding me? Alabama, they haven't shot the most amount of free throws in the country, but as guard penetrators and as a team that's attacking the rim all the time, they're likely to shoot more free throws than that here. On top of that, free throw disadvantage. Texas Tech only shot 27% from three. They're not a team that thrives on three-pointers like Alabama is. So this is a different animal, I guess is my point. Alabama probably doesn't have the same glass disadvantage as they had against Purdue. Alabama shoots the three much more than Texas Tech. I think they had 16 makes against Purdue. Nothing wrong with that. And Alabama certainly is a quicker transition team. That's probably, Illinois likes to run. You want to get out and run with Illinois and you're better than them. I could see Alabama winning this game, guys, United Center or not. They did it against St. John's, a team that's more toward their tempo. I just feel like they might be a little better than Illinois at what Illinois does best. If they lose the rebounding hugely in this game like they did against Purdue, I'll probably lose the bet. But I don't think that's going to happen because, again, Kaufman, Wren, and Clough are different than what Illinois has for rebounding here. So I like Alabama in this spot plus the points, and maybe their team total even gets over. You see the move on this total, right? It's like 182 or 183 right now.
A lot of points.
Alabama's team total is in the 88.5 range, I think. And again, it will be played in high octane style.
Yeah. It's funny that Rob pulled those Nate Oates quotes. When I was putting them down in my notes for this game, I was like, I wonder if Rob's going to get these too, because they were pretty telling. But look, we know, obviously, and Rob just alluded to it a moment ago, we all understand what a Nate Oates coach team is going to look like. They led the country. Alabama did an adjusted tempo in last season. They're fourth so far this season in that department. They hung 103 on St. John, so they certainly could score. But the issue, as Rob alluded to, at least in the early going, has, by their own admission, Alabama's own admission, has been rebounding. They were out rebounded 52-28 in that 7-point loss last Thursday to Purdue. And it's interesting that Rob was able to isolate the Texas Tech game, Illinois' rebounding there. I guess because what's interesting is the Fighting Illini come into this game with the second best rebounding differential in the country right now. And I marked that down as a red flag, but I guess that, when Rob isolates the Texas Tech game, what that boils down to is Illinois was able to out-rebound its lesser opponents. So, I guess that's where that rebounding differential comes from. Now, the Illini have their own issues. They don't force turnovers at the defensive end. They're actually bottom 6 in the country in that department. That's concerning. So if Alabama's able to continually get shots up, guys, with the number of possessions they typically have, might be a long night defensively for Illinois. Trigg at the outset. You mentioned the game being played at the United Center. Not a true home game for Illinois. On a neutral, I would make this spread Illinois minus 3.3. We should probably give them some bump for home court, but not a full 3 points, obviously. The total is going to be what catches a lot of people's eye. Rob mentioned it. We're already up to 182.5 from an opener of 178. I don't like the idea of betting a number that's already moved a couple points off the opener, but the over is the only way I would look. I would not bet under in this game under any circumstance. That would be a miserable 2+ hour viewing experience, first of all. And obviously, with the way these teams play, I just don't think it's a fundamentally sound bet. I could only look over in terms of the total here.
Yeah, I mean, the only argument I think you can make for the under is, I guess, would correlate with Illinois having some success, because Illinois really needs to try to slow this game down if they can. You could pretty much set your watch to at this point, like a Nate Oates game is going to be to the rim, jack up a three. They want to play as fast as humanly possible. So now I'm not saying Illinois is going to do that. I'm just saying like that's kind of what Purdue did. And that's probably like, it makes sense for Illinois to want to take the air out of the ball a little bit if they can. That's a whole nother thing. Like there's wanting to do that. And then there's being able to do that against Alabama. As we know, that the latter, like most teams would love to do that. And they just can't, because Alabama is so insanely athletic and really typically is able to play their game against just about anyone. Now, the Ivisic brothers is very important here, in my opinion. Tommy is God. I'm struggling here. I'm just going to go first names, and I'm going to shorten it. I'm going to call him Tommy. Tomislav has not played since the Jackson State game. That being said, how impressive was Illinois against a Texas Tech team that I think is very, very good? And they didn't have him in that game. And they were I remember getting into a conversation with Brian about his number on Illinois, thinking it was a little high in that game. And Illinois was clearly the better side. If I remember, Texas Tech kind of like snuck in to maybe backdoor some numbers in that game, but Illinois kind of controlled that game. Like that was like so impressive to me. And now you might get him back. The other brother who has been the one that's been in the starting lineup, I guess got banged up against Colgate. Not sure what the status is, but like those two are kind of important here because that's your rim defense if you're Illinois. I'd love to. I wish I was like more confident in Alabama because I do think there's some value at like 4.5, which is what I'm seeing some places now, but I'm just not. I don't really want to go against this Illinois team. So the slightest of leans toward Bama at 4.5, but I've already played so much other stuff for today. I don't think I'll be on this game.
One thing, Adam, I'll throw in real quick, just fundamentally in that game. Big Z, the center, Ivisic for Illinois, likes to float from the rim. He's a 3-point shooter too.
Yep.
And that just opens the door for Bama to clear glass when your 7-1 is standing outside the arc. So I don't know that they'll have the rebounding concerns that they've had prior, especially against Purdue. That just kind of hammers that point home.
All right, we got to get Garth in here. First of all, you guys can all thank Garth for the donation here because I was not going to talk about this game since it's one of my client plays. But I've got quite a few today, so I'll give one out here. But first thing I want, he says, got hooked with my Army team total last night. Yeah, that was a tough beat on his Army team total. We kind of talked about that game. I don't think anyone really gave anything out definitive in that game, but I watched some of it, and my one takeaway there, Garth, is like that's the second time this year that I felt like Army was like way outclassed, and Rob actually kind of nailed it. They like accidentally got there at the end where it was like they were clearly out of the game and they just kind of like, got there in garbage time to the over. There's 2 games now. The other one was when Brian Power and I were at the Michigan State game, and I was complaining to him that I didn't get St. Thomas in, and then Army somehow hung around with them as well in a game that they really never had a chance in. So it's like the reason I'm bringing this up is Army is even worse than now their current numbers are showing because they've now hung around and covered against Cornell and against St. Thomas in games that I never really felt like they had any sort of chance. So I would just, little bonus here, not going to help you today, but I'd have a big circle around playing against Army, not only next time out, but like when they play someone worse that's like more in their weight class. It's not maybe as a 15-point dog, but soon they're going to have a game that comes up and they're going to be like a 3-point underdog or a favorite against another bad team. I think you fade Army in that spot. As far as your play, Garth, I'm with you. He says thoughts on Wyoming Sam Houston game. I'm leaning Wyoming money line. Well, I gave this out this morning to clients. I took Wyoming plus 2.5. I think it's probably still there. This is a 3% play for me. And the reason, so a couple reasons I like this game. One, it's as much of a fade of Sam Houston State for me as it is a play on Wyoming. 2, I just felt like Sam Houston was getting too much credit for being home. Sometimes Wyoming gets you'll see books attach points to them for going on the road because when you get into the season, they're home road splits. I know Brian's nodding because he hammers away at this, Mr. Mountain West, always on the home road splits. And I'll let you kind of jump in a second. Like going to Laramie and then them on the road is a whole different ball game. But when you have to travel in the Mountain West, it's a lot different than early season going down to play Sam Houston State in Texas. So I felt like there was too much given for home here for Sam Houston, and I just don't think Sam Houston is going to be able to stop Wyoming's offense in this game. And I just don't trust Sam Houston to put enough points on the board to stick with Wyoming. So that was kind of my handicap here. I took the 2.5. Weigh in on the home road stuff there, Brian.
My take is really simple and going to be very brief. I just disagree with this line move, the way it's going. I made this game a pick. It's something that I would not have played initially. This is not a game but if this gets, and you talked about where it's at right now, most places have it at 2, FanDuel 2.5. If I were able to get a 3 on Wyoming, I would absolutely join you. I think, Trigg, on this one. I think this line, as I look at the odds screen, this one's moving in the wrong direction. I get it. Wyoming historically has been a great, obviously football, basketball. I don't know what it is in the other sports. They always have a tremendous edge at elevation in Laramie, and then they kind of stink when they travel. But this is a situation where, I don't know, maybe people are just banking on Wyoming's history of struggling on the road, and that's why the line's moving the way it is. I just don't agree with the way this line is moving at all. Again, I made the game a pick 'em.
And I think real quick, guys, I'll just add my 2 cents from a totals perspective. I find it hard to think that Wyoming won't get to 80, Adam. Their team total here is, let me look for an update, but I think it was 79.5 when I looked earlier today, maybe 78.5, can't remember which. But nice time to tribute the name Sundance Wicks, who came in here last year, and he's completely reshaped the style of this team from a miserably slow molasses-style tempo that you expect from Wyoming football and Wyoming basketball. Go back into the Wayback Machine ever since Fennis Dembo played at Wyoming, and they were a quicker and really good team. This team gets up and down the floor a little bit. They can shoot it. Sam Houston State may be garnering some respect because they're better tested. They played Texas Tech. They played Utah. Give them credit. Texas Tech still beat them by almost 20, maybe more than 20. Not staring at the final right now, but I know they beat them pretty good. Utah beat them. It was somewhat closer. And Wyoming doesn't have those two on their resume. But to me, Wyoming's just a better team at this point. You know, I played their team total last game, and they got there for me. They scored 93. I think they do it again here. Sam Houston State likes to run. The game's going to be up and down. The betting market has absolutely gone crazy on the total, pushing it up. I think it's about a 7-point move now. I could somewhat concur, but I really like the underdog side here scoring their share, which, like I say, I believe is going to be over 79.5. So that's the way I'm going to look. Like that Wyoming guard play here, guys. For those who haven't seen and you get a chance to take a look tonight. And let me just, before I stop here, let me just thank Garth every day with the donation. Every single day. Donation. Appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Absolutely appreciate it. And he's been asking about games we've been for the most part getting right. So we kind of got to keep it going here. So the only other thing I'll add there, just Rob, I think you kind of are on the right track with the Wyoming over. Again, it's really just more. I've been very impressed with what I've seen from them offensively thus far. But the one point I'll kind of make about Sam Houston here is I still think they're getting like a little bit of respect from like their preseason ranking, because the only 3 games this team has played so far was a non-D1 game that they won, and then they lost to Texas Tech and Utah on the road. So I feel like people are kind of looking at it like, oh, okay, well, they played Texas Tech and Utah, almost as if they're getting credit for playing those 2 games when they still lost. Now they did cover against Utah and actually played pretty good, but like I almost feel like they're getting like credit for like playing those 2 games when it's like, okay, so you played 2 power conference teams, you covered against one, you got run out by Texas Tech. Like, I'm still trusting my this is one of the few scenarios where I'm still willing to trust my like preseason assessment of Sam Houston State, because they really haven't played an opponent that's in their weight class yet. You played a non-D1 and you've played 2 teams that are from power conferences. This is an opponent in their weight class, and it's an opponent that's better than them in said weight class. I don't think Sam Houston's going to score enough to keep up with Wyoming. Simple as that. So this will be my parlay leg. Client play for me, and I will go Wyoming plus. Can I get plus 2.5 still? Is that out there, Brian?
It's at FanDuel, a very popular website, I understand.
So we'll say Wyoming plus 2.5. If I have to attach the minus 120 to it by the end of the show, I will do that. And thanks for the donation, Garth. Thank you for the question. And Wyoming plus 2.5 parlay leg. Go ahead, Brian.
I was just going to say, guys, and remember, we obviously, Garth, we appreciate it so much. If you guys just want to drop a simple like by smashing that thumbs up button unders, or of course, make sure you click subscribe. That way you'll be instantly notified when this show goes live, 10 a.m. Eastern, every Monday through Friday here on the Wage Talk YouTube channel. Just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, and also, if you didn't know, we all sell our plays at wagertalk.com. So if you ever want to know everything that we're on in a given day, head on over to wagertalk.com. We have great specials up right now. Full court package gets you 3 days. I've already fired 5 college basketball plays for the day.
My God.
Had those yeah. Well, listen, I feel like I have an edge right now, and I think it makes more sense to kind of spread it out. 3 and 2 for me last night. Hit my 4%er, which was the top play, and I'm beating a lot of numbers on these. So again, that is my shameless plug for myself, if you will.
I'll just say I gave out a lot of stuff. Obviously, Iona here on the show. That was a nice play. Yes, very easy. I wish that was my $5 Tuesday play, because my $5 Tuesday play in football on Bowling Green, that was one of the most unconscionable interceptions at the end of the game that you'll ever see. I thought we were stealing it the whole way. I really felt good the whole way. And sorry, gang. I know a lot of you guys jumped on board that $5 play in college football. That was a loser last night. But hopefully you caught some of the free plays here on the Wager Talk YouTube channel, because we gave out some winners. If you want to check at Brian Power _wins, like it says under my name there on the screen.
Rob, I'm going to go to you for this one, but before I do, Brian gave out Iona yesterday, won by like 100. I feel like they were up by 30. You love coaching changes, Rob. Iona brought in an NBA guy, Dan Giroux. I didn't realize they were bringing an NBA team to New Rochelle, because that team has looked, and I can't stand giving them an ounce of credit. We don't like Iona over at Siena. It is our MAC rival. That's been going on for a long time now, but they look awesome. I'm glad we don't have to play them. Siena doesn't have to play them until like January. Hopefully they can get this out of their system, but they look incredible so far.
Can I give you something real fast here? Because I was going to bring this into the show, but I want to say now, good friend of mine, been in business with him for a little bit, for the last 25, 30 years, but he's a Stillwater guy. Oklahoma State through and through, although he graduated Vanderbilt. He sends me this quote. When you said Iona is like a pro team, Adam, it just reminded me of this. I got to read this text to you guys. We were going back and forth about Steve Lutz. And he says to me, I take it all back on Lutz. He's calm and cool, but active. Pokes are a semi-pro team, and it's crazy. Jumped 20 spots on KenPom after the A&M win, and they're just getting started. They have it all: size, scoring, shooting, rebounding, ball handling, experience, and an adult Iranian man who looks like Freddie Mercury. So to teams that are semi-pro or pro, my buddy is very, very high on Oklahoma State, who tonight is anywhere between 4.5 and 5.5 point favorites against South Florida, if anybody wants to talk about that game.
Yeah, Rob, I want to go back to you on that, because not only do we have Oklahoma State, but we have Nate Oates Jr. over at South Florida, and Brian Hodgson, who is playing suddenly. I don't know if you haven't watched South Florida yet this year, they look a lot like Alabama. Maybe not to the caliber of the player that they're getting. Like Alabama's getting basically whoever they want. South Florida's got to do a little bit more recruiting to get the guys they want there, but Rob, I mean, every game is in the 90s. They're up and down. It really is just Nate Oates' carbon copy now for USF. So talk to me about that game. Stillwater, Oklahoma tonight, Oklahoma State, South Florida. How you see it?
Yeah, I think exactly the way we described it, Adam. It's going to be up and down. Steve Lutz has a history of playing fast anyway through the OVC. I remember when Belmont and Murray were together in that league. Steve Lutz always brought a high-tempo team into the games. I think that for what it's worth at this point, I think Oklahoma State might be a little more well-rounded. At home, Gallagher-Iba, again, not an easy place to play, not a venue that South Florida has frequented over the years. But I think Oklahoma State's equipped to go ahead and defend against that style, because they'll run it right back down at South Florida. So full game total, I'm not that, you can't play under, let's put it that way. But I would rather focus on is the Oklahoma State side, which I think will exceed their team total. And I think they might cover this game as well. What's yet to be seen out of South Florida, and really what's yet to be seen out of Nate Oates' Alabama, is ability to play defense at any sort of consistent level. Like Alabama, South Florida doesn't mind if you score on them because they're just going to take it out of the bucket and try and score 3 on your 2. Oklahoma State's been fairly good at shooting the threes, so they might match them there. I think it's a high-scoring game. No, you don't need advanced knowledge to make that statement. But I do think the Oklahoma State side, it's funny, Adam, I was going to say I'm being proactive with Oklahoma State, but yet this line is 5, some places 5.5, and it seems like the market has bought into Oklahoma State early in early betting because it was 4.5 as an opener. So maybe I'm not as proactive as I think with semi-inside knowledge that I think is going to help me. But I like the Oklahoma State side. And I'll just add one more because I watched this closely last night. If we're going to talk about Nate Oates' coaching tree, Georgia Southern with a Nate Oates disciple. And I was watching that game close last night to see if it got over the total. And last night, that game was really low scoring against Georgia Tech. Kind of a surprise. Damon Stoudemire against a Nate Oates disciple run team. More or less bad shooting than really slower tempo. So keep an eye on Georgia Southern if we're keeping track of all these Nate Oates coaches across the country.
I have nothing to add to that game, but I want to get my parlay leg out, Trigg, if that's okay, because I see it flashing on the screen. All right.
Go there. Let's go there.
All right. We're 2 for 2 this week. Taking short home favorites in both instances. We mentioned Iona last night, running Princeton out of the gym, and then we had the Dolphins of Lemoyne on Monday as a short home favorite as well. I want to go Jacksonville State. Can I get, since we're throwing this in a parlay, Trigg, can I just play it on the money line? They're minus 130, minus 140 on the money line. So before this show started, guys, if I can peel back the curtain a little bit, this number moved from 2 to 3. And I was like, okay, it's in line with what I make this number a lot higher. And I thought the line was moving in the right direction. As Rob was breaking down Oklahoma State, all of a sudden I started seeing flashes on my screen and it started going in the other direction. I don't agree with that. I think right now is the time to act. Right now is the time I want to talk about this game. This is a sheer numbers play for me, Trigg. I make this number north of, I think I'm way off market here now with this line, with the pushback towards South Alabama. I will talk about the South Alabama side just a little bit. While it's just basically a numbers play. South Alabama, they're 5-0 this year. Okay. Couple wins over MAC schools, 3 wins by 6 points or less so far. So I actually really like this money line angle because I could see this being, you know how close game variance goes. Yep. You win a bunch of close games, and guess what happens? The regression gods say, no, we're not going to let you do that anymore. And this could be a close one tonight. So I like the idea of just playing Jacksonville State on the money line. One of those guys, it should be pointed out, and we noted this last week when South Alabama, or it was even maybe 2 weeks ago now at this point, when South Alabama beat Toledo, they were up bigger in that game. But they did have to come from behind to beat Alcorn State, which, so those are like, obviously, okay, in one situation, they probably should have won by more. The other situation, they were lucky to win it, maybe at all. So give me Jacksonville State on the money line for my leg of the parlay here. I think the Gamecocks end South Alabama's unbeaten run to the season.
Would you say like minus 130 on that?
It is, yes, minus 130. We'll call it minus 135.
All right. Minus 135. All right. We have 2 legs of the parlay locked in. Over the next 22 minutes, we will get a leg from Rob Veno to close it out. Someone in the chat says the Italian stallion Rob Veno in the chat saying, what's up? That's B Daddy. He's been
was a jobber in 1980s wrestling, I think, right there. The Italian stallion. That's the guy who was losing to Arn Anderson on a Saturday night in 1987, man.
It was Rocky Balboa before that.
Yeah. Yes.
So real quick, like WWE jobber story. We had one of my buddies. One of my buddies was a writer for WWE. Like his friend was one of his friends was like years ago. I don't know if he still has the job or not, but like he would every once in a while, like they would just name jobbers like random stuff, like if it was a squash match, and like every once in a while he would like name them like one of our names. So like there was like not mine. I don't think my name ever got on like Monday Night Raw, but like definitely a couple of the other guys in the group did, where it was just like awesome. They'd come out and get like squashed by like Ryback in like a 30-second match just to, so
Standing stuff. I didn't know yet. I have a buddy. I have a good friend who still writes there. As a matter of fact, you and I never had that conversation, Trigg.
yeah, that's, I'm surprised it didn't come up in this 6 hours we spent in the car the other day.
Exactly. For real.
All right, Jay Buff, we're coming to
No.
you. And also, Aaron Pauling asked about this in the comments of yesterday's show. So that's another thing. Jump into the comments of the YouTube replay on these and just interact with us. We will answer most of them. If you have a question for the next day, like we're trying, I try to get in there a couple of times a day. So there's a game that doesn't come up on here that you have a question about, hop in the comments on the YouTube replay, and one of us will get to it. And in Aaron's case, I know he said he might not be able to watch the show today, but we're going to get your game, and it also happens to be the game that Jay Buff wants to know about. He wants to discuss Dayton plus 5.5. Says he really liked this game when he dove into it. Has not been impressed with what he has seen from Marquette so far. So, and I'll start by I'll go to Brian, and then we can go to Rob next. I wasn't so much not impressed with Marquette over the weekend, but I was asking myself, or it wasn't over the weekend. We did a show that day because on air, Brian, we watched that Marquette Maryland line explode. And I think it got as high as to like maybe 7, like 2.5, almost like up to 7.5. I think people were still laying 7 with Marquette because Maryland had some guys out. And Maryland just played good in that game. Like, tip the cap to Maryland. They just played a really, really good game and beat Marquette without a couple of their top players. So what does that do to your handicap here? Like, how do you take that info and process it?
I figured somebody was going to ask about this game. My issue is, I don't have an issue, but, Dayton, I look at Dayton, I kind of lean towards taking the points here. Dayton, their lone loss was to Cincinnati. It's okay. That's so they've played somebody of substance. They've been in an unfriendly, that hostile environment, if you will. I think Dayton's going to be better defensively this season. Meanwhile, on the Marquette side, you talk about Saturday's loss to Maryland. They were kind of inefficient, I thought, on the offensive end. The 3-point shooting outside of Ross and Gold hasn't been that good. Maryland scored a lot, 47 points, over 1.15 points per possession. I don't know. I just look at this right now. If you force me to make a play, I would take Dayton. I figured this game was going to come up in the chat, so I just wanted to have kind of a lean, if you will. And to my chagrin, I guess, I agree with Jay Buff. I would take the points.
Rob, I want to go to you on this one because I wanted to follow you two on this game because I have opinions on both the side and total, and I have a feeling that you're going to talk to me about the total on this one.
Yeah, and I look to the underdog side here, Adam. I would isolate and play Dayton's team total over. It's 73.5. It's the lower of the two totals because they are the underdog. And for what it's worth, with the Marquette side, it's been up-tempo basketball nonstop. Anthony Grant doesn't have the history of wanting to play that way, guys, but yet they played some really high scoring games. It's another team where just on a personal level, sitting down before the games tip off, opening up a bunch of apps. And I took a shot on Dayton's team total last game and they poured in 90 plus, I think it was, got me over the team total pretty easily. So they have that ability to score against a defensive team that's going to, again, in Shaka Smart typical style, if they're not able to come up with steals, they're generally not a good defense. Trace them back to VCU. VCU was never a good half-court defense. They're always a good trap, steal, run-out defense. Dayton handles the ball really well. They shoot it pretty well, especially from the interior. I like the team total on that side here, Adam, in a game that I don't think Dayton's going to be able to control pace for a majority of the game. I think that'll be Marquette for better than 20 minutes. But I think Dayton could even outscore them in that sort of game. The better defensive team, equipped with offensive weaponry. To me, 73.5 looked too low.
Rob, I rarely have a strong opinion on a total. I kind of love the over here. It's not going to make my card because it's just like not really how I bet. And I don't really trust like my set, like I don't really make numbers for totals. Like it's just not how I attack the market. But this is a rare scenario where I'm pretty confident that there's going to be a lot of points in this game. So to go to your point, like, you know, the first thing that I thought when I looked at this was, okay, I'm going to probably like Marquette, thinking that they're going to bounce back off of like the tough Maryland loss. But my number kind of came out right in line with the market, 5.5. And I had to like almost like pinch myself a little bit and say, like, are you being too critical of Dayton? Because the Dayton games I've watched just this year, I've watched 2 Dayton games in their entirety. It was the UMBC game where they really kind of, you know, toughed out a 6-point win as like a 23-point underdog. And then I caught most of the Bethune-Cookman game on Saturday. And Dayton's defense was a disaster. I mean, that is not a team. I know they somehow took Auburn to overtime. That is not a team that should be like getting whatever they want on offense against you. And that is exactly what they did all game. Dayton ended up sort of just like, you know, kind of going back to what you were saying, Robin, and why I think you like the Dayton team total. They just executed on offense the entire time, put up 91 points, ended up winning 91-82. But I was like, man, this team is just not able to stop a SWAC team. And then the previous game, you know, they lost that game to Cincinnati by 12. I didn't watch any of that game. I feel like I might be even more anti-Dayton had I did. So number came out right where I sort of expected it to be. And, you know, they haven't now Dayton hasn't covered in a while. So it's like, maybe this is where they nip one and keep it within the number. So I'm not going to give anything out on the side, but I'm pretty confident that this is going to have points. So I would then concur with your Dayton team total, Rob. I think both team totals probably get there.
Yeah, I think it's a little different, Adam, because we have to guess. I'm not at their practices. I'm not in his head. But to me, it seems like Anthony Grant is making an adjustment off of his coaching philosophy because of what he has on the floor. It just seems to me that he sees that maybe he doesn't have the defensive capability this year, and he's got a team that's more apt to score points. So that's what he's going with. The game you just brought up is the game where I had the team total. It was the Bethune-Cookman game, mainly because Reggie Theus was on the other side, and I just thought there'd be pace. They could score on Cookman. But Cookman pushed back and scored. So it's not the first time Bethune-Cookman has been good this year under Reggie Theus. So we'll have to keep an eye on them too. I think we've said that before, but I do think 73.5 is too low of a number for Dayton here. I think they should get to 75 pretty easily.
All right. I'm feeling generous today, and I see like a whole bunch of people asking about it. And I also kind of screwed myself showing up with this shirt. So I'm going to go to the, I'm going to go to the Toledo game. And Rob, I'm coming to you next for a parlay. So I will give you the heads up there if you want to sort of figure out what you want to give out for the parlay or what game you want to go to. But there's a whole bunch of people asking about Toledo in the chat. Brian Power and I had the privilege of going to Savage Arena last weekend, 2 weekends ago. They kind of treated us like kings there. So thank you to the University of Toledo for sort of giving us the full access, the full tour.
Awesome.
I think we were on like an hour tour at one point. All the behind the scenes stuff they have. They opened this great new area. That's all. It has nothing to do with the handicap here, but you know, we just felt like I would bring it up. People want to talk Toledo, Youngstown State, Brian, and I truly feel like I feel like I have I told you this in the car on the way to East Lansing. I felt like I had this Toledo team pegged. And now the last 2 times they've played since we went, I've cashed tickets for and against them. I cashed with Toledo against Wright State, and then I faded them over the weekend with a Detroit team that was catching 10 points. I just didn't think there was any way that Toledo should be favored in that game. What I figured out with Toledo is they're going to struggle against a zone. We saw the game that we saw, Brian. Marshall made the adjustment. Second half, they tweaked their zone a little bit. Toledo couldn't get a shot off. Go back to the first game they played, South Alabama team we just talked about, very good zone defense. Toledo dug them. Now they figured it out at the end, almost came back and won, but dug themselves a huge hole in that game. The Wright State game was a better matchup for them, and they went into Wright State and won easily. I think Youngstown State is a good matchup for Toledo as well. I just don't think they're going to hit them with that type of defense. They've got a little bit of a size. You know, they've got some size on the inside where they're going to be able to get the ball into the paint. And so I really do like Toledo in this spot. I just think it's a far more favorable matchup. And now, like, you're getting them as like a pick on their home floor. Lost a couple of home games in an arena that they really don't lose at home that often.
Yeah.
I think they get this one here. You are nodding. Do you agree with Toledo money line? I played that for
Yes.
clients 3% earlier.
Yes, they're 0-3 against the spread at home so far with the 2 outright losses to start the year to the aforementioned South Alabama in the game we were at against Marshall. Then they don't cover against Detroit. That was a winner for you. They were laying 10, won by 7. I think it's time for the Rockets to cash at Savage Arena. I would concur and co-sign with that play right there on the Rockets.
What do you think they're serving for dinner tonight? There is the real question.
I don't know, but man, I'll tell you what, man, those tacos smell good. I mean, the Lord knows I don't know. I wound up eating enough tacos that Saturday, but man, I was about ready to just kind of like just duck out on our tour and just start stealing tacos. But yeah, man,
they had like 8 different food stations out
yeah.
for like the season ticket holder folks.
Yeah,
like,
if you're a season ticket holder, you're getting treated like a king at the Savage Arena.
Yeah,
man.
If you have access to any of those private areas at Toledo's arena, it is far exceeds your typical like mid-major experience, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And just to be clear, Toledo money line -115. That is another one of my client plays. Like I said, I'm feeling generous today because I've got like 5 plays. I'll probably add others.
It is the holiday season.
Like I was gonna put Toledo in the parlay, but Garth asked about Wyoming. I got excited and threw that one in instead. So Toledo 3%er, a game I like quite a bit. And I think it's a good bet. I think it's a good matchup for them. All right, Rob, do you have the game that's going to close this 3-teamer out?
Yeah, I'm going to, and hopefully the chat doesn't accuse me of being a homer because I've done this before, but I'm going to go back.
Rob, I gave Sienna out on the show the other day. Couldn't be worse than me.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the well. I mean, we barely got there by half a point the first time. I'm going to go back to the well with Belmont tonight against Lipscomb. Belmont is a 13.5-point chalk. I think at this point they've been bet up a little bit from 12.5 to 13.5. Total's gone way up. For those who don't know, I mean, this isn't Ohio State, Michigan, but this is a pretty hot rivalry. Belmont Lipscomb. Casey Alexander, coach of Belmont, coached there, and this was his dream job to come back and, when Rick Byrd, finally put the vest to rest and stepped down as Belmont head coach, Casey Alexander stepped in. He's done a great job. Belmont off to a pretty good start here. Lipscomb, not so much, guys. Coaching change here. And, it appears that there's a little bit of a difference. First of all, Lipscomb is generally a very, very good shooting basketball team. It's how they win games is by offense, not defense. And this year, their shooting numbers are drastically down against not so hot schedule. So I'm wondering a little bit about the coaching change here that's taken place in Lipscomb. Meanwhile, Belmont, they too haven't really gotten to their 3-point capabilities as of yet, but they're playing a little more to their interior strengths this season, which I think would help here. There's going to be a lot of emotion. There'll be full focus on both sides. I think in this one, Belmont, if they don't get off to a fast start and open up margin early, I think they pull away late. They've just got the better, Lipscomb's got returning personnel, so it kind of makes no sense that they're stumbling the way they're stumbling out of the gates. But I think we have to take advantage of it while we can. When they get into conference play, they'll probably be rounded into form by then. I don't think it happens now. I like Belmont here, a team that can get you to 90 in a blink of an eye. Belmont minus the 13.5. And real quick here, guys, I mentioned Air Force, and Army and Air Force have now made Adams' worst 5 in the country list. So boo to the military academies for being so bad at college basketball. But Air Force is taking money today, guys.
Yeah, we should talk about that quick because that is Navy's good this year. So shout out to Navy. I think they're going to be in the mix in the Patriot. Derry Hardaway says Rob Veno the GOAT. I second that. And I hope we can get it done for you guys on the parlay because we keep going 2-1. But I think the info has been beneficial, and hopefully we'll go 3-0 today. But we have a few minutes, so we'll recap the parlay at the end of the show. Rob, let's talk about that game because I'm not going to bet it, but I have some opinions, and I think we have Air Force at home against Alabama State, a SWAC team. The opening number was -1. Who would have ever imagined you'd see something like that? And now Air Force is taking money, and I don't know if I really agree with that. So what do you make of this, Rob? Clune Arena tonight in Colorado Springs, Colorado, the Air Force Falcons.
Yeah, you really don't know what to make out of it from a fundamental standpoint, Adam, right? I would argue that Alabama State's going to be pretty good in the SWAC this year. But how often does Alabama State travel to the altitude of Colorado? That's your problem here, and probably why the money's come in on the Air Force side. I mean, Alabama State, are they going to be gassed 10 minutes to go in the game and just watch Air Force shoot a few threes and open up some margin? I'm not sure. I don't think Air Force is any good, like we've said repeatedly here. And actually, we've played against them in the parlay. So that verifies that. But I would say that on a different floor, maybe I would bet Alabama State in this game. But on this floor, again, it's just a strange road trip for a SWAC team to take into Colorado Springs. And I don't know enough about them in altitude to know if this roster is going to handle it or not.
What's your number on this one, Brian? Did you have a number for this game?
I didn't actually do that one handy, but we can get that very handy because guess what?
While you're getting that,
both these teams start with A, so it's going to be very easy for me to do that.
Easy to sort.
He alphabetizes his power ratings.
Yes.
Nice.
So, while you're getting your number, all I'll say is I personally made the number where it opened, Air Force -1, and this is a scenario where I've been to Clune Arena before. They probably won't be much of an atmosphere at this game. So it's I think the altitude thing is a little bit overblown, especially when it comes to Air Force, who plays very, very slow. It's not like Air Force is going to tempo you to death. So I don't know how you're really getting tired playing against Air Force, to be honest. They play slow. Their offense is abysmal. So it's for me, I think people like you're saying, Rob, are just betting Air Force at home, altitude, huge advantage.
Right.
Is it though? Didn't Long Island sort of get there in the second half of that game? So it's they didn't run out of gas. Alabama State had no problem with UAB. I kind of like Alabama State here too, especially at the current number.
So you asked about, I made it 1.75. That means it kind of just falls between 1.5 and 2, obviously, for the line. So I was also closer current. And somebody in the chat, Steve Duke, Eagle Eye, he points out he made a good point. This Alabama A&M team just played Colorado. So that actually gave them a game to get accustomed to the altitude of out there. Yeah. So again, that's another reason maybe it doesn't bother them as much, besides the fact that Air Force, how do we say?
Left out of the conversation is they lost by 28.
That is true. Yeah. But at least, I mean,
but they've been there since Sunday. They've been there since Sunday, so they should at least be a little more acclimated. Yeah,
walking around to it. Now, whether or not they can play basketball in it is, I suppose, a different story. But yeah. Oh,
yeah. Matt says so. Matt here says he bet Alabama State plus 3.5. Listen, I can't argue with that bet. I think at that number, you made a good bet at a good number. What happens will happen. We'll see how it goes, but I don't think that's a bad bet right there.
Air Force 350th in adjusted tempo, Trigg, per Ken Pump. So just to put a number behind what you were saying about how they're not exactly looking to run you out of the gym, fly you out of the gym, as that may be.
Got to go chase their 3-man weave, Brian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every once in a while they hit a nice back cut, but that is an abysmal offense. And last year they would have Ethan Taylor would bail them out every once in a while. He was a very, very good individual talent that they had. I don't think they have that this year, and I think that's why you're going to see them be historically bad for a Mountain West sort of power conference team. I know Mountain West is they get called mid-major sometime. That's crazy. That's not a mid-major league, but
I think they're above a high major. By the way, Air Force 333rd off in adjusted offensive efficiency at Ken Pom. Alabama A&M 337th. So I don't know. Maybe it's. What's the total?
Wait till the day when Army plays Air Force this season, and we get to talk about it.
This total, the total's dropping like a rock, and I can't argue. Well, I think we all kind of don't really agree with the way the spread's moving, but I do sort of concur with the way this total is moving.
All right. We have reached the end of the show, which means we recap the parlay one more time. I did price in a minus 120 for Wyoming, and I put a minus 135 for Brian's money line play. So the parlay odds today will be plus 510, which is fine. I'd take a 5 plus 510 hit, especially after the last couple of ones that have not gone our way, but still up, I believe it's 8 units on the season, 8.8, something like that. I've got the exact count somewhere. I'll have it tomorrow, win or lose. The parlay is going to be Wyoming plus 2.5, Belmont for Rob Veno minus 13.5, and then Brian Power is going to go Jacksonville State minus 135 on the money line. So a 3-teamer all sides today. Wyoming plus 2.5, Jacksonville State on the money line minus 135, and then Veno is going Belmont minus 13.5. Thank you guys again for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe and even leave us a comment on the replay. It truly does help. We will see you guys tomorrow morning for more Full Court Press.